So I'm sitting here, obviously thinking about fitment because probably could have fit this panel better. Uh, See over here, it sort of once I didn't stretch enough there. Instead, it looks like I bent it. So once it got some heat to it, that sent the electrons and molecules running, and causes warpage, right? Because that's what heat does uh, to electrons, especially when you're taking a relatively cool piece of metal and introducing 3200 degrees to it instantly. Um, because I'm an idiot and I decided I wanted to do gas welding. Um, I could just as easily do TIG, but now I feel like I'm kind of married to the idea of gas welding rather than MIG or TIG. And part of that was uh, I never really felt like I could see under a hood, whereas with gas you only need these. And it wouldn't be an issue probably if I did better at fitment with my fabrication. Um, you can see that right here, I did a great job with my English wheel, keeping that curve with the existing body lines of the door panel, but definitely kind of boloed over here, so that'll probably end up requiring a little bit of Bondo, which a couple of years ago I would have been abhorred at. A year ago, I would have been like, oh, let's use lead. Um, but after so many days of, your front teeth going numb and having a headache because you're an idiot and don't wear a respirator and get a mild case of lead poisoning. Um, Plus, it's just a fucking mess. Uh, it's not as fun as I thought it would be. I mean, it is kind of fun, but really for just small areas on flat surfaces, like horizontal to the ground. But all that sort of goes back to fitment, right? Like, what was I, not just with the metal, but I guess more metaphorically, what ideal was I trying to fit myself into based upon these decisions to gas weld, lead body, all very obviously nostalgic, um, right? But then you also don't show anybody your work or all your fuck ups because I mean you really can't put anything on the internet without having 100 people tell you that you're doing something wrong or should do, X, Y, Z, which can be helpful, I guess, in some instances if you're looking for that. But um, why? To impress your friends? Your friends will be impressed if you do it yourself, right? And if they could do it better, then they would probably be over helping you. So it makes me think of all the rules of not just card building, but what we think is cool, right? No billet on a pre-63 car. That's super uncool. But really, it's your car. If you want to put some billet rims on it or whatever, go for it. But don't do it to fit in with other people with billet rims on their car. Do it because you think that's what you think is cool. I happen to think this is cool, and I'm okay with not being super great at it because I'm not trying to fit in anywhere. I'm just old, crotchety, uncool myself, and I don't need to fit in anywhere. I need to fit in my house, in my garage with my family. And I think about my kids who are in middle school, right? Like, and I think back to myself in middle school where like every snicker or every giggle, you were like so certain it was about you. Like you're just so hyper aware of like everyone else and just trying to fly under the radar. And that's sort of the age they're at now, which again sort of like goes into fitting in. And like even in you know grown up punk rock, we still had rules that you know that you followed so you could be an individual just like all your friends, or being a skin, being a psychobilly, whatever. There was there was there was rules for fitment. Like in the early 90s, you weren't liking Rancid was uncool because you know they made a video on MTV back when they played music on MTV, and that was uncool and viewed as being a sellout, not really punk rock. Um, but nobody said anything when Civ came out with his album and video, which was awesome. But I guess Posy-core guys got a pass. Uh, but or because people probably knew that Civ didn't care. Um, you know, fitness. So this is the piece that I cut out. All right. So I basically fabricated this piece so it was larger than what I wanted to cut out. I clecoed it in, and then I used a cutoff wheel to cut this out. And that was sort of how I got close enough on my fitment, with the exception of where I didn't. Uh, but it's sort of interesting thinking about fitment. Like, why did I even cut this piece out? Well, as you can see, there's about a quarter-inch dent in it. And that resulted in uh, a buildup of Bondo across this whole section that was just um, ridiculously thick and cracked and scaling off and looked like ass. So when I took a barrel grinder and we started to look what was under the Bondo, it was like this big gouge in the metal. Initially, I thought I could uh, fill in that hole better, right, with lead. Um, but lead because lead's cool, uh, totally worthwhile. I mean, it has its applications, and it's a neat thing to know. But realistically, like it shouldn't be any thicker of a coat of lead than it would be a coat of Bondo. Um, so all I started to do was replicate the mistake of whoever put Bondo on this. Uh, and if you think about it, like they would rather conceal the flaw, right, than repair the panel, because repairing doors is a pain in the ass. So much stuff can go wrong. You can't really get to it from the back. Harder to plug unless you remove the backside, and you know, it definitely is the easier way to do it if it can be done. However, it can't, and eventually it'll crack, scale, and you'll see all those flaws and the attempt to conceal it. Uh, Picking up that metaphor. So it's actually better to, in my opinion, um, to do your best to fabricate a new panel with a English wheel and a old mallet and sandbag and shrink or stretcher if you got it. Just massage it into place to the best of your ability, and and do what you can without really caring what other people think. Because the whole point of a custom car is to customize it to your individual tastes, not to the individual tastes of a certain scene or subset within a scene or whatever. That shouldn't matter, because it's going to be you driving it around. Just like your body, just like, you know, your personality. You can conceal it, or you can just embrace the flaws and put them front. Be yourself. Dare to let people uh, appreciate or denigrate you based upon your own merits. Um, you know, fitment